What do we have here?
I'm just making a cyanotype of the peacock feather that I thought was really beautiful.
Nice.
So I'm finishing that up.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wow.
I'll let this dry and
And what type of paper are you using when you're using the big? Is that the same thing? You just cut it up in smaller pieces?
It's watercolor paper, but it's cold press, so
okay.
So it's a little bit of a smoother, less of a texture feel to it. So yeah.
And you were saying you could do that, the chemicals on like fabric too. Does it need to be cotton or linen, or does it matter?
It can be anything. I've done cotton, I've done linen. Yeah.
Is it something that you can wash afterwards, or does it fade away?
No. So if you wash it with like any kind of soap, it will take the chemistry away, and then you will be, the image will fade significantly.
So not like a t-shirt, but more of like, so maybe a bag or something that you're not going to put in the washing machine.
Yeah, and I was doing prints on fabric for like things like pillows.
Pillows, yeah.
But I realized like even that, like I like to be able to wash my pillows.
Yeah.
So I've found some ways around that where I'll scan the cyanotype and then like get it printed on actual like washable fabric in a washable method. So there's ways around that.
Nice. How long have you been doing this?
So I learned cyanotype printing when I took an alternative photography class. And that was probably my junior year of college. So in your sophomore year, that's when you kind of decide that you want to major in a specific field, at least in my program. And I wanted to be a photographer. And then you spent all of your second year in college like preparing your portfolio. And I remember being like really like, I'd never taken darkroom photography. But at that time, like that's what you presented in your portfolio, was a group of silver gelatin prints. And so I was admitted into the photography program, meaning I could like
was that a research institution, like a research program?
Just a state school.
Oh yeah, state school.
And then I could get my BFA as opposed to a BA.
Yeah.
And
when my grad program, the undergrad, it was a state school. That was how it worked. They had you had to apply in there. In the second year to go in your third year. So that sounds like it's probably a similar case in a lot of schools. Yeah.
And to be honest, it wasn't like as competitive as graphic design was. Graphic design was really rigorous. But I was still kind of like nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
let's do it.
So anyway, after I got through sensitometry, which was invented basically by Ansel Adams to create the most perfect negative that you could possibly make, which meant that all the zones on a gray scale were represented in the image. So it was a full tonal range print. So sensitometry was the method that you learned that, but I had to take that my sophomore year of college.
Interesting.
It was brutal.
It's like a whole class?
It was a whole class of photographing a towel.
Oh my gosh.
And
trying to get the most gray tonal range out of a towel.
So when I started teaching photography myself, I realized that when I said things like bracketing exposures, students really didn't know what I was talking about. It's because they didn't have to suffer through sensitometry, where you would photograph a towel and you'd underexpose 6 stops, underexpose 5 stops, on and on into overexposing, and then you would use different chemistry, different temperatures, and it was a way to show you that through chemistry, through the knowledge of chemistry and film, you could there were no accidents. You could plan everything out, and that's from a very specific movement in photography. And so, but that's why I had to take my sophomore year.
Yeah, that's great.
So I was like really I know I love looking at photographs. I know I want to make beautiful ones, but I also like don't know if I'm going to get into the program, because how do you make art by photographing a towel?
Right.
So there was just this interesting combination of really old school photographic printing methods. And then my sophomore year, junior.
Yeah.
I got to finally take other kinds of more fun photography
right.
classes. And one of them is alternative processes.
Okay.
So in photography, we call cyanotypes, Van Dyke browns, liquid light, like anything that isn't like your typical darkroom or your typical chemistry or just even digital. Like there's many different ways of making a photographic image, and so that's where I learned it. And I didn't like it.
No.
It's never been my preferred until I was out of school, and that's when I realized I could still do the process.
So like not having access to a dark room kind of led you into doing cyanotype more often because all you needed was the bathroom and the chemistry.
Right. So access was a big deal. Like, you know, I wanted to continue being a photographer, but I didn't have a dark room. I didn't, and I only lived in rentals, and like, you can't like build out something like that, or at least I convinced myself that I couldn't.
Yeah.
Because it requires like sometimes plumbing and maybe a little more like ownership. You can't just change a rental like that. So I found I could still do this printing process.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you've been working on 2 different types of projects while you're here. You've been working on the cyanotypes, and then you've been working on this long series of photos that you've been doing kind of over, did you say 3 years maybe?
Yeah, it's been since 2018.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was doing sequencing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to relay everything out before I packed up.
Yeah.
But basically I was trying to figure out the sequence of the photos. And so when you're a photographer and you're working with, you know, within a project or a concept, you know, how one follows through the narrative really is impacted by like where you place the photos, one after another.
Definitely.
So anyway, so I've been trying to fill out, you know, where are some gaps with this? Where are some images that I like that are from other things? So that's the other thing I was kind of unlearning in the last year was it's okay to have these different projects and kind of like sit there and don't necessarily have like, and then it'll fit into this body of work and it'll fit in. I had this project that I started and I was kind of like, I don't really know where to go with it. And then I took this workshop and I learned quite a bit, and it was just kind of like, okay, like loosen it up. Yeah. You have some photos, and maybe they don't all make sense together, but you like them or they're strong. And so that was the workshop, is how do you integrate these photos into one project, one sequencing. And so one of the exercises was to kind of capture the emotional essence of the image. And so I was doing that and going from there.
Great.
And
so
and then seeing like, you know, it'd be really cool if there were more photos kind of going this way with plants or going this way with animals. Yeah. And I could do that here because it's all nature based. Right. You know, you could do a lot of nature based art here because it's really accessible. Yeah. So yeah.
So it's almost in design we have the term design authorship. So it's kind of you're creating your narrative and you're authoring your own work, and you're kind of like being your own editor, kind of trying to figure out how the story is connecting, and that's really interesting. So and then we've talked already before, but this is kind of a dreamscape, and you showed me some of your other work that was more still life. And so kind of what have been maybe some like takeaways, revelations that you've had over the last 2 weeks that you feel like, you know, you're probably coming back?
I think it's just really good to remember that that the camera can be a tool for experiment. So counter to this idea that I learned in sensitometry, where you have to have complete control and mastery over the chemistry and the process, and you know what the image is going to look like, that there are these opportunities in a photo shoot to, especially with opportunities for play and collaboration and happy accidents, or just even, and if it doesn't work, it's like, cool, move it on. So I found that I'm kind of stronger at not being in too much inside my head when I'm looking at the images that I just shot, because I was really lazy about it. I would photograph and let it just sit on a hard drive and not really pay much attention to it. And I realized it has to be very active, and I have to be like, does this image work? Like, and or it's close. Could I make it work a little bit more? Could I add a little more bells and whistles? And then you do reshoots. So I think like the thing people don't realize is just how much you go back and reshoot a scene and a shot, and because it's like it's almost there, and so there is experimentation. There are happy accidents, but there's also like planning in a different way where you're like, I want to reshoot this, I want to go back to this, but I want to try a different model, or I want to try just a slightly different time of day, and see what the light does. So review is really important, and like not being too attached to anything, just like, because I think like you're saying, that design element of taking control and ownership, because that was another thing. I was kind of like, well, if I had a curator, or if I had somebody to edit for me, that's what I need. And it's like, well, who? I don't have a curator. Who's gonna do it? And the workshop I took last year was saying like, no, you have to figure this out, and you really have to know. Now, of course, if I brought all these prints and framed to a gallery space, perhaps that curator would have some ideas, but I think I'm well within my right as the artist to say, I really think it needs to follow this sequence. And I've thought a lot about it.
Exactly.
But when I'm talking about dreams,
I had a crazy dream last night, by the way, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Alison.
When I think about dreams, though, I'm like, dreams are just really, you're in it, and you don't have any control, and it's just stuff that pops up. And before, like, we had really good science to back this up, like early scholars knew dreams were a way to process memory. An experience, personal experience. And that's why I like dreaming vividly and kind of remembering them, because it's kind of like something happened and it's still working its way. And so you could say, well, you're neurotic, or you need therapy, or whatever. You need to like process that. But I am just like more celebrating the thing that is dreams, like your dream, that you experience, that you have no control over, that's kind of letting you in on some things. But ultimately, I think this project, so there's the basis of that surrealism, dream work or dream analysis, but also just this idea of how do we exist in the natural world. And so there is that kind of like, there is this next great mass extinction happening. And it's a tragedy. So how have we like gone really amiss, and how can we be more in touch with plants and animals, and respectful, and not destructive. And I think that that's kind of where the project could go if somebody were to write like an essay or an analysis of it. But I was really like, I was also listening to Swan Lake again. And it's this idea, it's like a dream. It's like, you know, the prince falls in love with a swan, and like this wizard turns her into a human, and it's just like, but it's all at night, and the like setting and the scenes are really beautiful, and the dances are really beautiful. And it's about, you know, maybe it's about love, but maybe it's about like contact with the natural world in these dreams.
When was that written again? Do you remember?
I think it was the 1800s. See, this is why I'm like, I'm not a scholar on this. I just
but that's
know.
okay, because like I think that in the 1800s they were dealing with like industrialization and you know like nature and things like that, so it makes sense, right?
So actually music is a big part of this. You know, I sometimes create playlists to go with projects, but I keep hearing that Tchaikovsky, that score, because there's this like, you know, building and crescendo, and it's like you're in a dream and you're getting swept up in it, and then you like, you know, go back to your stage 2 of the dream and sleep cycle.
Right.
Actually, the REM is when you're only dreaming.
Right.
Or only when you're dreaming. But anyway, so that's been, I kind of am referencing that, and then I was looking up, per your suggestion, A Midsummer Night's Dream, where Puck at the end is like, you know, don't take this too seriously, pretend this was all just a dream. And so, yeah, like, there's magic there happening where one of the musicians is turned into has the head of an ass. So I was like, this is perfect that I'm adding like donkeys to this. And there's just like, there's a humor, there's like this campy reality, there's a magic to it, but all this stuff is happening at night. And I think that there's something really powerful to kind of look at this, because if we played in nature more, or really got in touch with the unconscious elements of ourselves, you know, who knows what we might realize.
And you showed me an inspiration of a woman in video.
Yeah,
and
Maya Deren.
Yeah. So it seems like there's so many elements here. Have you thought about how this might transform into more of a multimedia? Or is it mostly a still flat thing, kind of?
Well, I really loved actually your idea of like projections on curtains, and that kind of also, it's dark. So this idea that you would go in and it's dark and you're in the cave.
So you're thinking like installation.
And the cave is akin to you're asleep and you're in your head and you're like looking at your eyes. And I like that idea, especially for the black and white images, but I did project this image on a sheer curtain in the night here, and that I think that's really beautiful, and I think it's like a repetition of imagery. Like this symbol keeps coming up. This like, am I dreaming right now? There's my bed. I just got up, and like, but am I still dreaming? And where am I? So it's so I think that could be really powerful, but I mean, I'll always want like a beautiful print on the wall, but I don't know, like, at the same time, this project is less about beautiful printing, probably. It's more about, like, get through the sequence as a viewer and watch this transformation happen.
Nice.
And it hopefully has, like, nothing to do with me.
Nice.
Other stuff, like there was another project. Like,
that's funny. So you have had other residencies, and you had originally hoped to be here during the summer, but some things transpired and you couldn't make it, so you cut from a month to 2 weeks. So how has this place or experience been different, or whatever, kind of upon reflection as you're leaving tomorrow, for you, and kind of past experiences? And
I think every residency has something different to offer. There's been residencies where I'm by myself the whole time, on a property in a house, and I'm really like alone with myself, and that's kind of exhausting. Actually, and kind of hard, but I wouldn't say like I work better or work more in those instances too, because I'm probably like much more inclined to like watch a movie at night. Here it's a lot more social because there's more people here.
Just so happens to be other people here, so it's turned social.
And I think like me personally, coming off of a situation where I was very scared to leave my house because of the pandemic, it was really exciting to like be around people, and like I don't think I've met a single person here who hasn't like been like, I went through this and I realized nope, not anymore, and I'm gonna like try this and journey and try something new. And I think that I'm around people taking action now. And that's just really exciting to be around people in motion and in action, and not just kind of sitting at home scared or bitter or resentful that the world is still just, we're so smart and yet we still don't understand this virus.
Right.
So I think that I had to get over a lot of my own crap to get here, and so ultimately it worked out for the best. I'm glad I'm here now.
I do too. I think we talked about that too, that just the weather and the people are different, and just like it seems like it was the right time. That's great.
I feel like that, and I feel like 2 weeks probably wasn't enough. But yeah, I could have done another 2 weeks, but I'm just really glad to just know that this place exists, and that you've built this, and so that's really comforting, and I also haven't been sleeping very well because I'm just staying up really late talking to people and playing chess. So
I heard there was an epic game night last night.
So I'm also well, if I go home, at least I'll sleep a little bit more probably. But it's fun. I'm it's going away to camp, which I've never done as a kid. So it's actually really nice.
You're not the first that has said that.
Yeah,
about
you call it
this.
camp.
I do
Wonder.
on purpose. Camp.
So it
feels like camp.
It does have that experience, and when am I gonna be able to photograph donkeys or pet a donkey?
Right. Yeah.
There's really cool things that can happen here that can't happen at home.
Yeah.
So there's other opportunities to make.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So what's next for you? You're gonna leave tomorrow, and it's weird. You have to go back into kind of normal life, so you don't have as much time and energy for this type of work. But do you feel like you're gonna try and make it a weekly habit to pull it back out again? And
I'll have to. I think that this was really good. This was long overdue. I needed it, and it reminded me that I need it, and that I really can't really let more than a year go by without me having something like this. It doesn't have to be this residency, but I really owe it to myself to it's just so powerful and important. And I know I'm assuming I'm gonna go home, and whenever I start to feel I gotta go to a residency, that means I gotta do it, and there's just no other way, because just it's really productive. I don't even know how to describe why. But then I was thinking, maybe
because it's like camp, because you're taking yourself out of normal life, right? And
so I know I'm gonna go home, and I'm gonna maybe 6 months later really be I gotta go. I gotta go somewhere, and I gotta try some other place, and or maybe come back here or whatever. So I feel like that will be a really healthy reminder, and then I think I'll try to keep applying for shows. I'll keep trying to show my work in St. Louis, because there's just, I could be doing more. I could be trying more. And I could be inserting myself more into the art scene that exists there. And, but I was thinking too, I don't want my Saturday and my Sunday to look like they've looked. So I need to reevaluate my weekends. I don't want my Saturday to be I get up and I check Facebook, or I get up and I check Nextdoor and read about the crime. So this morning I was actually reading about a stalker incident in the city, and I was this is just not helping me. It's just putting me in a mindset of frustration. So I think going back home, I think I'm gonna reevaluate how I protect my time and my space for this. We'll see how it goes.
It's a good goal. I think we all have that kind of challenge, definitely. And getting into the art scene, it's still, I don't know what St. Louis is like, but I'm sure everything's still kind of, trudging along, trying to open up from crazy pandemic times, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but I think that your work is just really amazing individually and as a collective. I think that it's going to come together really well.
Thank you.
So,
well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate the ability to keep working on it. And I will say, like, the good thing about the pandemic is I could start attending workshops on Zoom, which just made it, like, it was easier. Like, I hope that continues. I don't think everything should have to go back to in person to be experienced. So, there's benefits to that. And this coming here for this particular project was really good for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. It's been really fun to interact, and the workshop that you did for us the other day was fantastic, and just seeing your work and seeing people work just in general, and getting a chance to look at your large format beautiful camera and you know, all of your equipment is just really fun.
I'm really glad I brought those cameras, all my cameras in fact, and I'm really glad that I did shoot film.
Yeah, you did that yesterday?
I did, and a little bit the day before.
Okay.
So I shot with my Holga, and I shot with my 4x5 Graflex camera, and I actually took it down to the river. So the river here is really special. So if I were here for 2 more weeks, I would go down there like several more times with the camera and do just a lot more. And I like the fact that you have property and you can just go right down there.
Yeah.
I just was like, oh, that's right, because there's like donkeys and there's like cats and there's this space, and then I was like, but there's a river and I can just go down there, and and then my housemate here was swimming in it, and so I had like a model, and that was just like really cool. So that was really, really cool that I had like, I was like, wow, I don't often so easily or naturally, organically get that kind of
all of the things, all of the elements. Well, when it snowed in February, I went down there and it was stunning.
I bet.
And I don't know where my film camera is. I don't think I have any film on me, but it would be, for someone who's more of a photographer, kind of a dream type of situation, especially metaphorically dream kind of thing. So, and
excellent. I have like a little bit of ages, so we'll see. We'll see how I can pull some of those images in, and I hope they turned out pretty good. And
cool. I'm so excited to hear more about it, and just can't wait to, have you back again. Thanks so much. It's been so great. All right.
Thanks.